Hi, my name is Megan. This is for Ball State's Special Education 683 course. Today I will be talking about different types of prompts, what a prompt is and why it is important. A prompt is essentially any assistance provided to a learner in order for the learner to make a correct response. We use prompts when we are teaching a new skill or if the learner has forgotten a skill and needs some assistance in order to achieve a correct response, then we will use a prompt for that as well. Prompts are important for a variety of reasons. First, it shows the individual exactly how they should be responding and what the response requirement is. It also reduces any frustration that might occur after an incorrect response or a series of incorrect responses. And it also allows the learner to contact reinforcement more quickly. Um, if a learner is repeatedly making mistakes, not only does frustration increase, but they're also not contacting reinforcement. And we want them to contact reinforcement as quickly as possible. So we provide prompts in order to reach that goal. There are 7 different types of prompts that I will be talking about today. They are gestural, verbal, visual, model, physical, positional, and textual. And I'll go through each of those right now and provide an example of what each of those is. So a gestural prompt is basically kind of what it sounds like. It's any gesture that you provide in order to get a correct response. So this could be pointing to an item or an object. If you're giving the directions stand up and you kind of make your hands go like this, stand up, that's also a gesture. Doing this, come here or come here, that is also considered a gestural prompt. If we are looking at receptive identification of an item, a gestural prompt might look like this. So if the target item is car, and I have 3 items out on a table or on a board, and I say touch the car, and then I point to the car, that is also considered a gestural prompt. The next prompt I'm going to talk about is a verbal prompt, and that is any kind of clues or commands or questions or anything verbal that I say that's going to help the learner make a correct response. So, for example, if I'm teaching a student or a client to say their name, and I say, "What is your name?" Johnny. That's my verbal prompt. I'm telling him to say the word Johnny to respond to his name. Um, Another type of a verbal prompt could be a question. So if we're teaching categories to a learner and we're teaching vehicles and we say, this vehicle says vroom, vroom, and they don't understand what you're asking, then you would say car, and that would be your verbal prompt. The next type of prompt is a visual prompt. So these can include pictures or objects. So going back to my last example, if I'm asking little Johnny, what says vroom vroom, and I hold up the picture of the car, and then he in turn says car, that's my visual prompt. I also want to mention that any of these prompts that I am describing can be used alone or in conjunction with one another. So sometimes you might need to use a visual and a verbal prompt. What says vroom vroom? Car. That was the 3 prompts I've already talked about. Gestural, verbal, car, and a visual prompt. So I think that's important to note too, that these can be used together. So that was visual prompting. The next prompt I want to talk about is a model prompt. A model prompt is basically the instructor performing an action that you want your learner to perform. So if I'm teaching my student to clap and teaching him how to follow one-step directions, and the direction we're working on is clap, I might say, Johnny, clap. And that's my model prompt to cue him that he should be clapping his hands as well. For model prompting, you can use a full prompt, which is kind of what I did, so doing the full action, or there's also a partial model prompt where if I were teaching clap and I wanted to fade my full model prompt to a partial, I might say clap and kind of put my hands up like this to indicate to my learner that this is the action I'm wanting. The next prompt I will discuss is a physical prompt. And again, you can have a full physical or a partial physical prompt. So I'll kind of bring this board back. So if we're working on car and I am teaching my learner to receptively identify a picture of a car, when using a full physical prompt, I'm going to give the direction to touch car, and then I'm going to take the learner's hand and touch it to the car. So kind of do this for my own. So I would say touch car, and I would take the hand and touch the car. That would be a full physical prompt. For a partial physical prompt, I would grab the learner's hand kind of above the wrist and get him maybe halfway to the car and then let him finish. So that would be my partial physical. So you're kind of getting them halfway there and then allowing them to go the rest of the way. So again, that's how we're going to kind of increase independence and fade the prompt levels. The next prompt is a positional prompt. So when you're using a positional prompt, you kind of want to manipulate your stimuli so it's clearer to the learner exactly what you're asking for. So again, if our target item is car, pretend this is a table and the learner is sitting down here. I move the car closest to the learner so that it really stands out, and hopefully it will kind of prompt the learner to touch the one that's closest to him instead of having to reach and touch the other ones. This one is isolated by itself, closer to the learner. So that's a positional prompt, is manipulating the stimuli and making it kind of more obvious to the learner what you're asking of him or her. And then the last prompt I want to talk about is a textual prompt. So that is kind of any written word that you would use as a prompt. So there's a couple different ways you could do this. So again, if we're working on car, here's the word car. So I could, one way to do it would be to put the text under the picture that you want. Another way to use it would be, again, if we go back to the example of what says vroom vroom, I can hold this up for my prompt rather than the visual prompt, which we talked about earlier. I would hold it up for a textual prompt. The textual prompt is most likely going to be used with a learner that has some sort of prerequisite reading skill. Otherwise, if you have a really early learner that isn't able to read, this prompt probably won't be very effective. So those are the different types of prompts, and I hope you found this video really helpful. And again, prompts are used by everybody in all aspects of life. We use them with our students, but we also use them with other adults all the time. It's just any assistance that is provided in order to elicit a correct response. So thank you for watching, and I hope you found the information helpful.